Well, it's a joy for us to be able to be here with you today and to share in this service together and to just see so many familiar faces and hearts, and it's a great blessing. I wanted to begin with a story, the prelude to actually a story, one of India's great epics, the Ramayana. And in this story, it begins in this prelude begins in a forest, a thick forest, far away from everything. And a young little boy has been left there, abandoned for whatever reason by his Brahmin parents. The story doesn't go into it, but there he is. And he is brought up in the forest. He is brought up amongst hunters and thieves and robbers. And so, as Yogananda says, environment is stronger than willpower. And this young boy by the name of Ratnakar, growing up in this environment, takes on these traits and talents, if you will, and they become his livelihood, his means of survival. He grows up and he marries and he has children. They have a family together, and this is how he lives and supports his family. People wander into the forest periodically, and he robs them, steals from them. Sometimes he murders them. This is his way of life. So, and at a certain point, someone comes along and enters into the forest, and Ratnakar looks at this individual. His usual means is to pounce on the intruder and take whatever is as his own and for his family. But he sees this particular individual, and it looks different. Something about this person looks very different, and so he's just standing there staring at this individual. And the person who has entered the forest looks also at him, and Ratnakar asks, "Who are you? Who are you, and what are you doing here?" And the personage answers, "I am Narada. I am the messenger of the Lord." Those of you who know Indian epic stories know that Narada figures in very importantly at just the right time. And so he announces himself and he says, "I am Narada." And Ratnakar looks at him, still not moving, not acting, and says, "Why are you looking at me like that?" And Narada says, "I feel God in everything and in everyone, and so I am looking at you with love and compassion." And Ratnakar says, "Why would you look at me with love and compassion, given his life and the way he has lived?" And Narada says, "Because God is everywhere and God is in you." And then Narada says, "Now let me ask you a question. Have you thought about the life that you're living and the consequences of living such a life?" And Ratnakar says, "Well, yeah, sure. And Narada says, "Well, don't you know you're accruing very, very bad karma doing this?" And Ratnakar answers and he said, "Well, this is my livelihood. I provide for my family. I fulfill their needs, and this is all that I have available to me. This has been the whole of my life." And Narada says, "Do you think your family is going to help you and carry some of the burden of this karma? Because you're accruing a lot of bad karma doing this." And Ratnakar says, "Sure they will. Of course they will. They're my family, my wife, my children." And Narada says, "Why don't you go ask them, check with them?" And so Ratnakar runs, to his home dwelling, wherever it is there in the forest. And he says to his wife, "Will you help me bear the burden of the karma that I am taking on by living my life the way I do and providing for you all?" And the wife says, I'm not doing this for you. This is how you take care of us is your business. This is your life. It's your responsibility as father, as head of the house, to provide. And you do what you do, and you're responsible for it, not me. So he goes then to his children, and he says to them, will you help carry the burden of this karma that I am accruing by living this lifestyle, by all of us, living this way? And they said, absolutely not. You're our father. We're your children. It's your duty to take care of us. And how you do that is your business. But we are not going to share in the burden of this karma. So Ratnakar he's a little stunned by this and a little uneasy. And he races back to Narada and falls at his feet and says, alas, they are not going to help me. I am alone in this, and my burden is heavy. What am I going to do? And Narada says to him, well, I will give you a mantra. And say this mantra and repeat this mantra unceasingly. And this will mitigate and eventually awash your karma. And so Narada gives him the mantra Rama, which is a name for God. But there's a problem here, because Ratnakar has lived this life of just utter destitution, of violence, taking others' lives, being harmful to them, beating them, taking what they have. Just awful. And he can't get that word out of his mouth. He can't say the word of God. He can't say Rama. It just won't come forth. So Narada says to him, okay, say the word Mara. One of the meanings for Mara is devil or Satan. And so Ratnakar starts to say this word, Mara, 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 Marama, Rama, Rama, Rama. And it becomes the name of God eventually as he purifies, as he cleanses in this process of self-offering and just really trying to focus on what do I have to do to ease this burden and get rid of it. Well, he goes so deeply into a state of inwardness, of meditation, of higher consciousness, immovable, still. Days go by, weeks go by, months go by, years go by, decades go by, and he is sitting there doing this chant inwardly, and the ants form a mound around him and build this whole anthill until it entirely covers him and envelops him. He's no longer visible. And so ages have gone by, and Narada comes back to the forest, and he has in his hand a staff, and he sees this anthill, and Narada being the messenger of God and all-knowing, and he sees Ratnakar within this anthill, and he taps it with his staff, and he breaks it open, and he says, come, you must come with me now. And Ratnakar says, I don't want to leave this place. It's safe. It's secure. I don't want to go out there with those bad people and get drawn into that anymore. And Narada says, it's time. It's time for you to come. You have to now do service in the world, and I have a great project for you. And so Ratnakar comes forth, and at that point Narada gives him the name Valmiki, because the name for the anthill of the ants is Valmikam. And so he gives him the name Valmiki. And he relates eventually to Valmiki that he is to write the story, the great epic of the Ramayana about Lord Ram and his life. And this epic is a treatise on right action and living a dharmic life, a life centered in right action. So this story came to mind. There's a number of elements which are very meaningful and insightful when we are looking at karma and what karma is. And as the title of the reading says, bondage or soul release. So both of those possibilities exist there. Karma is very powerful, and we need to really take an objective look, at our lives and whatever it is we've brought in with us. I think one of the key elements of this story is that Ratnakar, and this is how he earned the name Valmiki, he gets to this place where he realizes, I need to take responsibility for my life. This is really a pivotal point, that we take charge and acknowledge what we have, what we've come with, what is. It's nobody else's. It's not the fault of our wife. It's not the fault of our husband. It's not the fault of our children. It's not the fault of where we live. It's not the fault of where we were born and under what circumstances. And most especially, it's not God's fault. Okay? It is His fault that this whole thing is happening, that creation is happening. But as Swami Kriyananda always said, what is the point of having that conversation? To just yell at God for creating us. So be it. It is, and we need to do something about it, and we're capable of doing something about it. But that first step is recognizing our karma as our own and really owning it. It's not anyone else's problem. It's not anyone else's fault. It's not God's fault. And to just take it on and get busy about moving through it and embrace it. Yogananda said, whatever we have done, we can undo. Whatever we have done, we can undo. And he said also, God has given us more than enough power, more than enough ability and resources to surmount these obstacles, the obstacle of our karma. And if we just decide to go with it and let it be, that's that cycle, that spiral of bondage. And one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And even if it's good, so many times I heard Swamiji, just talk about, so what if it's good karma, Let that go too. Be free in your heart so that nothing on this world is pulling. Because as long as there's something pulling just a little bit, there's always that potential for it to kind of spin out and just become more and become more. That's the nature of this world. It's the nature of Maya. It's the nature of the physical plane and planet Earth. It's how it works. And our job is to move towards that soul release, which happens when we take that initial step and successive steps to transcend our karma, to transcend. We don't have to transcend. That's an incredible word. We don't have to relive every little thing. We don't have to work out every little thing. We can transcend that by entering into it with the thought that we're doing it with God. We're doing it for God. I remember once in my life and we all get to these places numerous times, and on this particular occasion I was a little overwhelmed with my own personal karma. And it was just getting very uncomfortable. It just was right here. And I was so tired of looking at it. And I thought, I've tried so hard to get over this, to get through this. I'm just going to let karma take its course. I can't do anything else. Essentially, I just sort of gave up there for the moment. Just let karma take its course. It's going to work out. I'm trying to live a good life and just going to let it be. Well, I sat with that for about 24 hours, maybe 48, even vocalized it to a couple of my friends, and I thought, yuck, I don't want to do that. I don't want to let karma take its course. Are you kidding? Every action creates a ripple that moves out, and it has a consequence, and that has to be balanced, that has to be evened out, and then poof, it's gone. But we can transcend that. We can transcend that by taking personal responsibility and aligning ourselves with the light, as Valmiki did, with the light. In any moment, we can turn that around. Swami Sri Yukteswar said, the lives of all men are riddled with shame, but everything will improve if you are making a spiritual effort now. And so to put forth that effort and to do it joyfully, to live this life and to do what God has given us to do without joy is not the equation that works. It doesn't work. What's the point of doing it if we're just wandering around, oh, my karma. Oh, I'm just going to have to push through this until it goes away. We come up at the end with karma. We have that karma. It's still with us. And as yogis, as aspirants, it's so important that we bring in that element of joy. And just, look at it as a dream. Look at it as the drama for what it is. Isn't it interesting? Isn't my life interesting? This happens, this happens, this happens. But so be it, because we're on that track of soul release. We're on that track of going to God and liberation. There is a great master said, the saint is the mightiest hero, for he has broken the unbreakable chain of karma. And so see yourself in that light. See yourself as the saint that God made in you, and live in that and reside in that. Reclaim your spiritual destiny. The opportunity we have, the spiritual opportunity, it is unparalleled. We have never lived an incarnation like this before. We are just right there. And to be in the joy of knowing that, to be in that consciousness, we can break that chain of Maya, that chain of karma. Yogananda said, God's power will dynamite away your troubles, will dynamite away your karma. It's incredible, that power. And when we take hold and seize the opportunities we have been given, just like Valmiki, that rise to realizing the saint within, everything else falls away.
Think about karma, it seems a little daunting that we may have come into this script with a lot of karma to work out. But Yogananda said that it takes very, very, very good karma even to want to know God. So everyone in this room is safe. You're really high on the good karma side. But as Maria was saying, we can get attached to good karma by identifying. The point of the karmic swing is for us to see that the Maya, the yin and the yang, the dualism of this world is not the ultimate reality. In fact, we are beings of light. We are beings of goodness and truth. We live beyond the realm of karma. And karma is constantly trying to hypnotize us into being a part of it and spending time accruing good karma or avoiding bad karma. But as with so many things, Sister Gyanamata had one sentence, or a short sentence that sums it all up. And she said, the things that happen to us do not matter. What matters is what we become through them. Now that changes the whole karmic thing, doesn't it? Because it's the things that happen, whether good or bad, don't really matter. They're in the realm of duality. But what we become through our reaction to the karma is what liberates us. And that's the point that Swami made in the reading. It's soul release. That's what we're after. So Valmiki chose to hold his mind on God and to distance himself from the bad karma. And in that worked it out. Yogananda says that meditation actually burns karma. You can actually burn up your karma without living it out through meditation. How is that done? The impression of karma is held in the samskars in the deep spine, in the astral body, in the causal body. We have impressions from karma, and we have tendencies and desires. When we meditate, we run the light at the point between the eyebrows through those samskars, those impressions, and that light burns the impressions. Remember that the impressions are in the shadow world, in the world of duality. Light burns away shadows. It destroys them. So meditation actually burns up karma. So it's a good reason to meditate. But our reaction to things is what Sister wanted us to do, is how do we react to what happens when bad karma comes to us? Suffering, evil, poverty, illness, disease, the death of loved ones. How do we react? Do we look beyond that to the reality that life is eternal in God? Do we look to the reality that health and disease are alternating parts of this universe, but they don't alternate in God? God doesn't get a cold. God doesn't get the flu. God lives in light, in a state of constancy. And we live in that consciousness too. So what Sister was saying is, what's your reaction? Valmiki reacted well. How do we react to bad karma, to suffering, to people treating us wrongly or us misunderstanding? It's always a question of turning towards a higher level of reality, of opening our hearts to the reality of God. That's what Thanksgiving is about, is gratitude. Thank you, God, for all of this, everything. And thank you for the good stuff and the pretty stuff and the beautiful stuff and for each other and for satsang and for world brotherhood. And concentrate on that because that is good karma. It does move you towards the reality that we are a part of God, always been a part of God. So we need to meditate. And we need to hold our minds on that. And what happens is, as you meditate, as that reality at the point between the eyebrows becomes a constant, as universal constant love becomes a part of your daily activity in meditation, then the swinging of karma takes on a sort of secondary role. It's there. Yeah, this is good, this is fun, this is bad, this is not fun. Yeah, but it is a duality that is not the main show at the point between the eyebrows. The reality of our lives is that God is love, God is joy, peace, with us all the time. God is light at the point between the eyebrows. God is Om. God is power. That is a reality. When we meditate every day, that becomes more and more integral to how we see everything. And then we're kind of ready for Sister's admonition. How do we react to things? We react with forgiveness, with love, with kindness, with gratitude, with understanding, with compassion. When people yell at us and people go crazy, you feel their suffering. Not the fact that you're getting yelled at. That's not very important. We saw this in Kriyananda. We see this in Yogananda. They're so centered in the light. Kriyananda was so centered in the light that he was always blessing people that were in suffering. He wasn't angry at them. What was the point of that? They're the ones suffering. If he gets angry, that's not very good. So try to live in that consciousness. We're in a very prime season, from Thanksgiving to Christmas. This is good. This is very, very good. Because it's one time of the year, at least in our country, in our culture, where people start to think about higher values. They're thinking about gratitude. Thanksgiving is a wonderful holiday. This is perfect. It's one of the reasons our country, the United States, has been successful. Gratitude. Thank God for what we've been given. Thank God for this beautiful city. Thank God for this beautiful river, for the sunshine, for freedom to worship, for all that we have. Be grateful and carry that and realize it's all coming from God and that you're a part of God. So practice that gratitude. Keep that going. And we're moving towards Christmas. When Sister says that, she says, the things that happen to us don't matter. What matters is what we become through them. Well, then, I used to always think of that as when bad stuff happens, it's my reaction that's going to determine what the outcome is. But what if we thought about it as the holiday season? It's a neutral event. What happens, the things that happen, holiday season, it's okay. What is our reaction to it? Are we going to participate in this reality of the birth of Christ and the blessing of an avatar coming to this world? Are we going to participate in being receptive to Yogananda's teachings and practicing them? What a great opportunity to practice the second coming of Christ, as Master called it, is to meditate on the Christ consciousness, to universalize it. Not the historical Jesus, wonderful, love it. Some of my friends have just been to the Holy Land, beautiful. What about the birth of Christ within? What about meditation? What about using this opportunity when, for one time, our country is focused on a wonderful, deep spiritual event? Pick up on it. Use it. The Christmas tree. Yogananda said the Christmas tree represents the spine. The lights represent the lights in the chakras. Okay, I'm going to bet you that in the next 30 days you're going to see more than one Christmas tree. And every time you see it, this is the spine. This is the lights of the chakras. This is the coming of the Christ. This is the star at the point between the eyebrows. Use this opportunity in a giant universal satsang. Christmas is going all over the world. Diwali's come to the U.S. We've gone to India. We're all in this together, the festivals of light and the festivals of love. Practice it and use it and work towards using the opportunity. Sister Gyanamata said, it is a state of blessedness even to want to learn to meditate. Is that cool or what? It's like, really? I mean, you just signed up for how to meditate and you're in a state of blessedness already? Yes, because it takes a long time, if you watch the movie of karma, to realize where it's going. So many people have no interest in their own spiritual welfare. They're focused on their suffering, their pain, getting out of the pain. They're focused on their phobias and their aversions and their addictions and their suffering and trying to get some pleasure out of life. And they're not taking that one step back that comes from many, many, many lifetimes of watching. It says there is a light shining through every human being. Every action, every inaction, every event is a doorway to soul freedom. Use that. Be one of those people who use Yogananda's teachings. You've been drawn to them. You've been open to the teachings of these masters. Use them and implement them. Practice up for the all-day meditation. We have a couple of weeks here. We have 3 weeks. Start to meditate every day. And when you meditate, use these images of the Christmas season, the three magi. Master says they represent the world's great religions, coming together to show the unity in worshiping Christ, and then he returning their visit. Use this opportunity, World Brotherhood Day. Make your Christmas season. When I live in Ananta Village now, so we don't have as much festivities. But when I lived in Sacramento, and I would drive through town, I'd always be looking for the Christmas trees and Santa Claus, who is a giver. I mean, take it all the way down to the lowest level. And even the used car salesman with the little Santa hat, he's trying to channel the Christmas spirit as best he can. But keep it on a high level too, because the light's shining through everything. And watch. When you hear those Christmas carols in malls, every once in a while you'll hear a really good one, a very spiritual one, and you'll hear a lot of schlock. I know. I've lived in this country my whole life, and I know. But I also know that underneath it is the blessings of Christ and the three kings, and their offering, and the message of Mary, the mother of Christ. Master said she represents Om. Through Om, we approach the Christ consciousness. Through Om, we hear and we come to the Christ star. So when you hear songs to Mary, when you think about the Virgin and Joseph and the baby and the travails that they had too, what happens? They have to flee the country. First thing that happens, they have to go to Egypt. It's the same story. This is the good and the bad karma. There's Herod, we have Herod's reincarnated as some world leader now. You can pick the one that you want, but they're all here. Same guys. And there's Christ and Mary. Om. Christ consciousness. Be there. And as this season progresses, feel it. And it will do two things. One, it will lift you, but it will also lift your brothers and sisters. It will lift all of them. Because we all help each other to realize we are one family. We have one Father. It is Christmas. It is a living reality. Make it real within yourself. And you'll see it in a very interesting way. You'll see that this Christmas is special. The law of karma guarantees if you put out a spiritual effort, what happens? You have to get a spiritual result. That's the law of karma. Master says in the reading, unerring. It always works. Thank God for the law of karma. Thank God that you don't just happen upon God once in a while. Realize if you put out the energy, if you look for God, if you read the revelation of Christ, if you practice yoga and meditation, and if you chant and sing the carols and feel the presence of God, you will feel the presence of God. You will see the star. You will hear his voice. You will feel that love. Absolutely guaranteed by the law of karma. Thank God for the law of karma.